Thanks everyone for joining. It's great to have you guys on and join us for our product update for March 2021. My name is Abhi Nirikar, one of the co-founders here at EPMware. And today on the line, I've got Tony Karatzis, one of our co-founders as well. Tony, you can say hi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Tony Karatzis. Looking forward to showing you guys our new features today. Thanks.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, guys. So let's go ahead and get started. In today's webinar, what we want to cover is a short overview of EPMware, and we'd like to demonstrate some of the new features, some of the new adapters that we've been working on, some of the new functions that we've been working on as well. We'll talk a little bit about these use cases as we go through the slides. And then finally, we'd like to show you the 2021 roadmap and kind of what's coming in EPMware for the rest of this year. And then we'll end with a short Q&A. So folks on the call, if you have any questions or would like to pose any questions during the call, there's a Q&A button that you can press down below in the Zoom panel, and that'll let you enter any questions. And towards the end of the session, we'll have a short Q&A slide that we can review any questions or comments about some of the features or functionality that we spoke about today. So for folks who are on the call that may not be aware of EPMware, we'll just cover a short overview of exactly what EPMware is and how it works. EPMware is a metadata management and data governance product. It is available on-premise as well as a SaaS solution on AWS. So EPMware does allow you to connect to your on-premise and cloud applications in one landscape. The way most folks use EPMware is to create a brand new request for change of metadata in a downstream application. So the typical day in the life of an EPMware user would be to log in to visualize their production hierarchies, and it would allow them to create a new request for change. Now that request for change can be a new account member, a new cost center, or it can even be a change to an existing property. So sometimes we have users who are admins, or sometimes we have users who are end users of financial applications. And so they'll log in, they'll create the change, and they'll enter that request into the EPMware workflow. And that's where EPMware's workflow process will guide them through a request and approval process that's been designed for that metadata change. Now, in addition to users interacting and creating metadata, we also have the capability for source applications to initiate change. So sometimes we see a hybrid approach where we have users that are entering requests into the application, but we also have certain dimensions like employee from Workday or a customer from Salesforce that may be fed in to EPMware on a nightly basis or an hourly basis that needs to also go through an enrichment process and then be fed to downstream applications. So EPMware is a little bit different than your traditional metadata management application. We allow users to interact with the software. It goes through workflow processes, but then we also close that gap when EPMware deploys this metadata to target applications. So we have a number of supported adapters that we'll cover in the next slide, where EPMware is able to directly speak to the target application and push metadata, and also consume a successful deployment confirmation from that application. So from the end user creating a request all the way down to the application consuming that request, the entire trail of metadata request and change, and all of the users who have enriched that request as well as reviewed and approved it is now available in EPMware. So it becomes a kind of like a single source of truth and a self-service metadata change process for any application that is either upstream or downstream from EPMware. Some of the target adapters that we support right now, all of the Oracle on-prem and cloud applications are available as out-of-the-box adapters. We do support EBS, NetSuite, Oracle Financials Cloud, Workday. You'll see some SAP here, OneStream, Anaplan. And of course, over here, you can see that we've got interface tables and flat files also available. So you don't necessarily have to use our out-of-the-box adapters. You can always choose to deploy metadata out to an interface table or push metadata out to a flat file, and then have your downstream application consume that metadata using any methodology that we have available here. So without going into a full-blown demonstration of the product, we wanted to show you just two screens here, kind of key to how users use EPMware on an ongoing basis. What we're looking at here is our dashboard. And in the dashboard, users can log in and visualize the requests that are available, requests that they may be responsible for interacting with, either reviewing a metadata change or updating a request with any values or attributes. And here you can see that we can see the real-time view of the workflow of that specific request. So here we have several different stages. Of course, the first stage we can see has already been passed and signed off by Jack. And this is a data governance owner stage. So the responsibility here is for the user to log in and simply provide their approval. And the next stage here is an alternate hierarchy stage. So in this stage, a user will be notified by EPMware and they'll log in and they'll have to create a member that was created in the initial stage in their alternate hierarchy. So what we allow you to do here is to kind of separate responsibilities between teams and assign separate enrichment properties to different teams within the enterprise, but still within one workflow process. And this workflow will just kind of continue moving on through stages. Of course, you can see that there's two deployment stages here. We've got a deployment to UAT and a deployment to prod. Now, as of last year, I think this was a pretty new update, and it's a pretty popular update that we've done. So what a lot of our customers are seeing is that incorporating this process into their metadata update allows them to ensure that metadata successfully loaded into their UAT environment. But then at the same time, EPMware loads that exact same transaction when it's approved in UAT over to production. So these deployments can be either scheduled or they can be run ad hoc. But some of the common issues that we see here are when metadata is manually loaded to UAT and then it's extracted and then loaded to prod, we can have issues, and we don't want our environments to fall out of sync. And that's kind of one of the key issues that EPMware helps to solve. The main metadata request page in EPMware allows users to interact with a hierarchy in real time, and they can see requests here that you see in red, or members in red, and that shows us members that are either live in EPMware in gray, but also members that are in flight through the EPMware request and workflow process. So here we can see that one member was created for our BSO application, and through our mapping and synchronization process, we have automatically created a line number 2. So what EPMware's done in this request is said, I understand that there are trailing changes to other downstream applications, but when I create a change in one application, I automatically know where to create that downstream change for any application that needs to share that metadata. So there are different ways to architect metadata in EPMware. You can go with the master view, or you can go with what we see here as the localized view to drive change. But it's configurable to do what works for that specific business process. Right. Once this is done, the user will simply just submit this into the workflow, validations and checks will run, and it'll continue on. So, this is the super short version of the EPMware demo. And, please, reach out if you're interested in kind of seeing more, but we'll kind of stick with, what's new and what's coming in EPMware. Right. So what we want to talk about today is some of the new and updated adapters that we have created in, I would say, maybe like 3 to 6 months. Was when we did our last product update meeting. The two most exciting ones that we have on this page here are the Oracle EBS and Oracle Fusion Cloud ERP. Now, these are pretty big. They allow us to have direct integration to EBS. And the way this works for EBS is it allows users to create requests for change in EPMware, and just like any other downstream application, run all validations for that chart of account structure. We've even incorporated rules for cross-validation on that hierarchy before it's flowed out to the target application. So what we see is, folks will try to pass any type of validation they can off to EPMware so that the metadata doesn't fail ultimately when it gets to that target application. The same thing kind of goes with the Fusion Cloud ERP process as well. We do support the metadata and the hierarchies, but in addition to that, the segment value properties, tree versions and hierarchies, and especially the DFF flex fields that are available. So particularly, we've seen that maintaining metadata in Fusion Cloud ERP is a little bit more of a headache than it is in EBS, and there's quite a number of screens that you need to get through and click through in order to maintain multiple versions of your tree and the hierarchies there. So in EPMware, what you're able to do is you're able to not only manage this from one single page, but you're also able to now share this metadata with other applications. So here on the left, we've got a few screenshots of segment codes as they exist in Fusion ERP, and some of the values. So chart of account segment values, segment value properties, and DFFs that are maintained, and also, of course, the multiple tree versions and the ledgers, as you can see here. So the current process to manage this in Fusion is to kind of go through this very cumbersome click-through process where you'll click through actions and view to be able to add your metadata update. And adding this metadata manually to multiple different hierarchies and trees within between this application can be pretty cumbersome. So, having everything ready and staged in EPMware and then ready to push out to that target application has been very beneficial. Now, we're integrating with these two applications with our built-in adapters. And so with the built-in adapters, you're not only getting the capability of seamless push button integration to those target applications, but also running all the validations, either technical or functional, directly in EPMware before that metadata pushes out. And that's pretty critical, because what we see is users will pretty frequently create requests. They'll go out to the administrator to load to the target applications, but we don't understand that there are failures until that metadata actually hits the target application. And so what happens is your users then start interacting with your admins to clarify what the issues are. And what we try to advise our customers is try to get as many validations, technical and functional, in EPMware at the creation of this metadata before it actually pushes out to the target applications. Right, so we've also added 2 new adapters. These are more updates, but we've added support for PCMCS, which is profitability and cost management, as well as Oracle Tax Reporting Cloud Services, which is better known as TRCS. So for these, similar to how we manage metadata for PBCS and FCCS and ARCS, this kind of falls right in line. That REST API that Oracle provides is very robust, and we utilize that to directly load metadata to these target applications. Now, the great thing with EPMware is, that's supported for native members, like you see here for TRCS and FCCS underscore, that are built into the hierarchy, comes out of the box with EPMware. So there are certain members that you cannot make changes to. And so, TRCS is kind of a derivation of our FCCS application. You can see some trailing, members here that still use the FCCS prefix, but there are very limited types of changes that you can do to these members. And that's supported out of the box, as well as the specific validations for changes that you can make to these members, either for specific properties or not. Again, with both of these applications, we do have a confirmation of the metadata load. So that means that when you load metadata from EPMware to these target applications, we're pushing that metadata directly to these targets. And then we're also consuming the success or failure of that metadata load to that application. Now, if anything fails, of course, you can see that in EPMware in the log file. So every deployment captures that log file, and you can filter through just one interface instead of having to go into a variety of different applications to be able to understand what failed, why it failed, and once you fix it, then redeploying it. So redeploying it simply is a right click and redeploy. And EPMware then pushes those members directly to the target app. What we've seen in recent implementations is, sharing metadata with either on-premise applications like HFM space planning or even FCCS and PBCS for PCMCS and TRCS. So there are a variety of different cases where you're going to share from HFM or from PBCS only subsets of that hierarchy, like your P&L and your balance sheet with PCMCS or TRCS. But again, this applies to any application that you're interacting with. It's not only just these applications that you see here. You can share it with any non-EPM or CPM applications. You're also able to share it with ERPs. So that's a pretty key component of EPMware, is as we add adapters to our list of supported integrations, we make it easier for you to get up and running and to load metadata to that target application. But you can always use, again, just a generic application hierarchy. It doesn't have to be of a specific technology type for us to support it. You can create a hierarchy using an Excel file and simply load that up and create custom properties and then manage that hierarchy. So let's see, kind of moving on here. So our most recent adapter, which we're really excited about, is our integration to OneStream. We've recently become a OneStream technology partner, and we've released a adapter that allows you to manage your OneStream metadata in EPMware as well. Now, this is a completely seamless metadata integration. We're not using any XML files. There's no extracting of an XML file from EPMware and then loading it into OneStream. You're able to kind of have a master data process to be able to manage your metadata and share it with other either ERP or data warehouse applications, and then deploy that metadata seamlessly, just like any of our other adapters, directly to OneStream. This does support the extended dimensionality concept that's available in OneStream as well. So you can see in this screenshot here that, if we're looking at a dimension called Houston accounts, it only allows us to see or update members that are applicable to that dimension, right? And so we're going to go into a little bit more of a detailed webinar, likely next month. So just follow us on LinkedIn at EPMware, and we'll be pushing out updates for that webinar sometime in the next few weeks. Right. So for the next new features section, I'll hand it off to Tony to walk through some of those details.
Okay, great. Thanks, Abby. Hi, everyone. Basically, I'm going to go over some of the a little more details of our newer features that we've added recently. One of those is the node-level security. Basically, this allows the application to be set up to, if you want to get the lockdown members or even just hierarchies, but if you want to go all the way down to a member level to lock that down with the security class, excuse me, to allow users to only change, or a certain set of users in a group to only change metadata, say for one member, or it might be more likely just a hierarchy, but you can go all the way down to the node level with security. And basically, it's pretty easy to configure. You can just go to that member in a request, and then you create a request and you assign a security class under the systems category. And then you would configure the security class, add a group to the provision a group to that security class, and then only that group of users could either request, review, or approve the request for that metadata for that specific member. And if you wanted to,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying if you wanted to make it, to administer it is pretty easy too. If you wanted to say you wanted to do it for just a specific parent and all of its children, we have it set up where you can actually just create the security class for that parent, and then all of the security propagates down to the lower level members. So it's easy to set up. You don't have to, select every member, put a security class on it if you just want to lock down an individual hierarchy, for example. Sorry, you were gonna add something.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that this is a pretty neat feature where we have the ability to layer in this level of security on a very granular basis. And I think one use case that we're working on right now is we have a series of EPM applications that are using this node level security within a specific set of workflows. And that workflow is actually driving which level of the hierarchy it allows users to make changes to. And so what we've done is, using this node level security, we've also created another subset of applications, ERP applications, that are also residing within the same EPMware instance. So you've got 2 ERP instances, an entire stack of hybrid and on-premise EPM applications as well, and they're all using either node level security or application or dimension level security to be able to segregate different groups within the application for their specific role or function within EPMware. All right, so I can go to the next slide, Tony?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go to the next slide. Okay, the next feature we added was backup and restore properties. So basically what this allows the administrator to do is, say, for example, like and even if it's like in development, it's like you're working on the application, you have a lot of configurations done where you've set, custom property settings and custom values, but, you've done a lot of testing and you just want to like wipe out, everything else in the app, all the metadata and everything, and just bring in a fresh copy of the metadata from the target application. So what this allows you to do is you can go ahead and delete the app if the setting is on yes, where you want to preserve the properties or enable the custom property backup. Then when you re-import the app in, it automatically saves the backup of all of your custom configurations for the properties and the values, and it'll just re-import the metadata, and then you have a clean copy of your metadata, but you don't have to do any rework with the property settings. And of course, this is configurable. If, like, for example, the situation was, so I don't want to do that, I just want to wipe the whole thing out, then you can do that. You can simply just turn this off, and then you can just re-import it, and then all the custom properties and configurations will be reset to the defaults, and then you can go in and reconfigure it if you want to. So it just gives you a little more flexibility on managing the metadata, and especially during development, to kind of do exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, that comment about development is exactly on point, because we've used this where during a development process we have to we're working on a subset of a hierarchy in UAT, and then we finally get closer to prod, where we want to be able to take the latest snapshot of what's going on in production and cut over to the prod application. And values and hierarchies have changed, so we want to be able to kind of true up the application right before we cut it over to production. And what this allows us to do is to retain all of the custom properties and those values that are there. And traditionally, I think what we were doing before this is taking tremendous amount of extracts out of EPMware and then loading them back in and loading in the property settings, and it was a nightmare. So Devin came up with this really cool feature to be able to retain the custom property settings and values. So really what you're doing is you're just hitting the import button in our application import screen, and then it's going out, it's pulling the latest copy, and then it's saving all of these values for you. So you can just continue to true it up, even on a daily basis if you wanted to. But I can see customers even using this on a BAU process as well.
Yeah, sure. All right. So another feature we added was copy and paste across applications. So I mean, you could always do this before with like our bulk upload. If you wanted to put it into an Excel file, and then you wanted to say, like, take accounts that were in HFM and add them to planning or Essbase. But it was just a little cumbersome sometimes for clients that were doing a lot of one-off changes where they would have to create a file and do a bulk import. So we just basically made it where you can just copy. Say you have an HFM or a planning application, you can copy that over to, say, like Essbase or vice versa. And even though the properties are different, if it's a dissimilar app, it'll simply just use the default values as if you were creating a new member. When you paste the new members over in the dissimilar app, it'll just use the default values for the properties, and you can go in and change them. But if you're copying to a similar app, then it'll maintain those. It'll keep those properties that are currently there, and then it would just be it'll just copy it over with the properties that were from the source. So we kind of have it set up where you can basically copy and paste across all different kinds of applications and individual members, the entire hierarchy, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the prominent use cases here was to be able to copy entire subsets of hierarchies from ASO to BSO, and
Right.
While those properties aren't the same, we had a customer actually approach us and say that we do this because we're going to go to OAC or Essbase on the cloud, and it's not like the interface in EAS where you can do these types of operations before you actually push the hierarchies out to the cubes. So this kind of mimics that type of manual operation. So what we like to advise is that you can build mappings when it's applicable to be able to create metadata in multiple different application hierarchies, but there are a variety of cases where just the mapping just can't logically exist because it's so manual between applications, and you do need this capability to say, look, I want to take a totally generic hierarchy from like an ERP application, and I just want to grab that entire structure, maybe just the member name and the description, and I want that entire structure to be populated into this EPM or CPM application. And it'll pull all that over. And when it gets to the target hierarchy, it's just going to retain all of its target properties, but it'll just populate the member name and the description. So, pretty detailed use case there. But in a case where you have to do manual metadata updates between applications, this can definitely help.
All right.
Right. So what's coming this year? We put together a roadmap for the remainder of this year. Obviously, validations are a really huge part of our process. We're trying to always add as many validations into all of our supported adapters to increase either technical or functional awareness before loading metadata. I mean, that's kind of part of our implementation cycle also, is to advise customers that whatever you can think of that would cause metadata to fail when you push that metadata into the target app, let's try to face these validations as early as we can when users are creating that metadata, whether it's an admin or even if it's an end user creating that metadata. And ultimately, it's making the community a little bit more aware of what they can and cannot do within their application structures. In addition to that, we're also adding and updating our existing adapters. We're definitely seeing a lot of interest in Workday, PeopleSoft, Salesforce, and NetSuite. So, look to see further webinars and demos on these target applications. You're going to see a lot of this similar features that we have on our existing adapters, the capability of pulling in a hierarchy just by registering an application, pressing a button, and then allowing that registration process to also make the connection to be able to deploy metadata to the target application. In addition to that, we're also adding automated notifications and emails for our workflow process. So being able to allow users to set reminders for metadata requests that may be stale or may not have action taken on them. So just kind of automated spamming service, if you will. We've also we do an extensive amount of work with KeyTeach in terms of a training class, and we're working on a logic builder training class. And so what we're hoping to do here is to have a one-day class that will help us do a more in-depth deep dive on the logic builder module in EPMware, which allows us to write free-form validations and mapping directly in EPMware, like a script, and apply it to different objects. So the logic builder does exist right now, and we've got hundreds of APIs and samples that are provided in the class, but we want to be able to create a class that gives folks a little bit more of a deep dive, and this is more for probably your application administrators or your systems integrators that want to be able to perform this for customers. And last but not least, I think we're definitely looking towards a updated dashboard and metadata analytics page. So providing a little bit more information on the types of transactions that are happening in EPMware on our dashboard. So whether they're more detail on the requests, who's reviewing and approving those requests. Now, a lot of that information is available in our reporting engine, but we want to bring that to the forefront and allow our administrators to understand, important things like what are the bottlenecks in our application structures and our hierarchies, and how do we take action on that? Do we need to modify our workflow, or do we need to modify our validations to keep metadata flowing as efficiently as possible through EPMware?
We're going to try to focus on making it a little more visual too on the dashboard, with maybe some metrics, with some graphics and that type of thing. That's kind of the direction we want to go in with that as well. So
cool. So we are coming closer to, or we're at the end, and there are a few questions here. Looks like comments, but we'll address them quickly. It says, number one, can you copy from different products? Yeah, and I think maybe we got to that part. So yeah, when you have a copy from or a copy to for any dimension, you can do that from any product that resides in EPMware. It doesn't have to be of a specific technology type. So even if you create a custom hierarchy and you want to copy from that custom hierarchy to a PBCS or FCCS application or OneStream, you're able to do that, and vice versa as well. So, so the next question is, will this deck be emailed to all participants following this session? So we'll put this up on our website, and then we'll send a note out to our attendees to be able to access this via the website. And of course, you can reach out to us at epmware.com or shoot us a note at info@epmware.com. If you want some additional information, follow us on LinkedIn down below at the address. We're happy to kind of walk you through what your requirements would be. And the last question is, does EPMware support native system members for EPBCS? Yes, exactly. It does exactly how it does for FCCS, TRCS, and for PCMCS. If you're utilizing the EPBCS built-in modules, we support those members the exact same way. So you can rest assured that you can't completely tear apart that EPBCS hierarchy in EPMware and then have it fail when it loads to the target application. So we're just at time right now. So thanks everyone for joining. Again, we'll have this deck up on our website. Give us a follow on LinkedIn, and we're happy to have you guys interact with us and reach out if there's any questions, or if you want to sign up for a proof of concept. We do those for free, and they're pretty quick. So thanks everyone for joining. Take care and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks everyone.